Hey everyone, we're back once again. I've contracted a bit of a cold, so apologies if my voice is a bit hoarse. I'm here with Matt once again, and we're going to go through and talk a little bit more about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink, I'm going to say it right this time, Chainlink, and WazirX. That's my little altcoin of the week. That one's been on a blue sky breakout, and I think it has a bit of an interesting chart, so we'll go over that one as well. So last week we were watching a couple of key levels. We were watching 8,411. That was the low of the dump here. And we did manage to get a bit of a bounce going here to about 91.88. But we topped out around right in the middle of the 12 and the 26, essentially rejecting off of the 26 EMA, the orange line there. Again, this is pretty common with what happens after you cross these two EMAs bearish. They start becoming resistance. And you can see as soon as we hit those, within 2 days, and just today, we have broken bearish. We lost 84.11 on a pretty solid volume dump. Pretty solid red candle here. Just to check in, I've actually been playing a bit of this move bullish just for short-term flips because the hourly and the 4-hour RSI hit, or the hourly RSI, I believe, hit single digits, which is very, very oversold. But again, on any bounce we see, I believe this week, we're just looking for a daily lower high. Even on a daily trend change, which is sort of not quite what we got here, but we had daily inside bars break bullish. We're still looking at these EMAs to be resistance on any bounce. And until we kind of confidently get over them, I would say that Bitcoin is in pretty firm bearish territory on the daily. What about Matt? What does Matt think?
Pretty much that, Julian. We're in a pretty aggressive downtrend to get the hourly RSI that beaten up and without any real semblance of a bounce. I know you don't use the EMA 5. It's not on your chart right now, but I just pulled it up to take a look. And EMA 5 is a very, very fast moving exponential moving average. Sure. This dump is being pushed down by the 5-period EMA, which generally indicates a very, very aggressive dump. And you can see it there.
Yeah. I'll turn this one off. Yeah, this is kind of like orange line here.
Yeah, and it's just driving the price down like gravity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. It was pretty phenomenal that even here we were at 10 RSI. We had that tiny bounce, but again, nothing really, and then just lower lows. The bears didn't get quite much follow through on these lower lows just because I think we are so overextended. We had a pretty immediate like push up here as they tried to break through 8,000, but again, the bulls are still nowhere to be found. There's some drama that apparently one of these Ponzi tokens has been unloading. And I know that on the Bitfinex order books, somebody has been consistently dropping like $100,000 worth of Bitcoin every few minutes. So,
as an ask or actually market selling?
Market selling.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a ton of activity on Bitfinex. So it's interesting when you usually see dumps, they're usually driven by one exchange or another. Usually always big players involved, right? But yeah, you know, whatever you believe, you can't ignore the charts here. The charts are bearish for sure on Bitcoin. Zooming out a little bit to the weekly, again, we hit our top here at about 10,500 and we're consolidating. We've already lost the 12 and the 26 EMA weekly support, and they're about to cross bearish. I don't think there's much this candle can do to save it. We would have to probably end up closing this candle around 9,000. It's just too early to tell right now. Theoretically, and I'll probably date the video if I make a claim like this, but if for some reason we didn't break 8,000, which I do think we're going to do, there's a likely for a weekly inside bar setup between 8,000 and 9,188. But looking at the way that things are going, looking at the markets today, which are just absolutely crazy. We had halts on the futures after hours. I don't believe this has happened since like 2016 on election day. If for some reason we don't break 8,000, I think it would be an inside bar on the weekly, but I think we are, and we're going to head a little bit lower here. Now, the only upside thing I'll say is that Bitcoin rewards people who are patient and buy the pullbacks when they occur. the likelihood of us immediately continuing down on the weekly to just bust through 6,435, I think is pretty low. I think if we are going to do that, and I'm not sure at this point, we're going to settle low somewhere in the 7,000 region, I believe, and then bounce and then break it bearish if we're going to do that. Or this could be a very good bottom fishing play around previous resistance, around 7,600, 7,800 area, for us to form our monthly higher low, which is what I believe a lot of people are looking for. What do you think about that?
So I would not expect too much further downside before a bounce, just because of how extended that hourly chart is. And looking at the 4 hour, uh, same thing. It's quite extended to the downside.
Mm-hmm.
The one caution I would give is that we traded sideways for 2 days, which means the if you look at the 4 hour chart, you'll see what I mean. The
Mm-hmm.
way RSI is calculated is it's based on the last 14 candles. And because we were just sideways right here for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, because we had 12 of the 14 candles just sideways, RSI is going to have a very immediate decline.
Mm-hmm.
And I would actually discount really low RSI a little bit for that reason, just because it will be so sensitive to any move up or down after such an extended period of sideways.
Yeah.
But that said, we are looking for a bounce at some point soon. Doesn't mean it's going to be today or tomorrow, but we are looking for a bounce in the somewhat near term future.
Mm-hmm.
Where I would be looking for potential areas would be probably,
Oh, you there?
sorry, I'm still here. I didn't disconnect. That was
Okay.
my mouse. I'm just looking at the chart here and trying to see where I would be looking. We have, if you look at the daily chart, we have a bunch of tops from December at the 7,600, 7,500 area. I would probably be looking for, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was
right
saying too.
there.
Is that range of 7,600 to 7,900? I think is a good area because it's former resistance. I think possibly turning into support.
So if we were to break down and have, well, we've broken down, but if we were to see another leg down on this hourly and 4 hour dump, I would start to look at how price action interacts with
Mm-hmm.
those levels.
I 100% agree. I think there's another thing too, which is generally daily oversold on Bitcoin have been pretty good opportunities in the past. Not always, and especially on really strong downtrends, they're not always that great. But you got to remember that we are still coming off a pretty good weekly move here. We've given back about half of the move, maybe a little bit, well, a bit more than that at this point. Um, but again, everyone is looking for a higher low in the next couple weeks above 64.35. We've broken through all sorts of support levels here. The next one is perhaps a previous resistance that can turn into support around here. And I'm going to think that bulls are not going to want to see it any lower there. There's going to be people who are going to try and protect that level to keep their skin in the game because there are a lot of buyers in this area. And if that does become a bottom, I'm sure they will be buying on the way up for this weekly lower high, which can form anywhere between 8,000 and 10,500 or so. Um, so yeah, I think that's one to keep an eye on. Definitely, like in terms of my positions, because I do actively play these markets. I'm still in a bullish Bitcoin position that I got basically on this breakout here around 7,300 or so. I'm not going to give that up unless this low breaks because I locked in a good chunk of it around the 9,000s. But I am looking to definitely deploy capital between 7,600 and 7,900 for some potential longer multi-day weekly swings. And then who knows, maybe we actually do break this bullish and continue. Um,
The bullish case I would say on this, and what I do like about this level here,
mhm.
is it also coincides with this level back here.
Yeah.
And the bullish case on this would be a weekly inverse head and shoulders pattern. But bulls need to step in and save it soon because we're pretty much right at that level where we would be looking for that shoulder to form. Just like
Yeah,
the left shoulder formed, we want the right shoulder to form not really any lower than that. We
yeah,
do have, we did break to a slight higher high. You could call this really a double top because $130
that's like 1%, right?
on a $10,000 instrument is insignificant.
Yeah,
But that would be the bullish case. And again, we are at some pretty beaten up levels on the 4 hour and 1 hour. So if the bulls do manage to get a bounce going, it'll be interesting to see what kind of follow through they can get from that
mm-hmm.
and to see if they are able to pull off this bullish reversal pattern. And I'm not saying that we are in a bullish reversal pattern. So let's be clear here. But if the bulls were to change the trend and to show up, this is what the pattern, this is the pattern that would play out.
It's the way I would say it is if it's like gun to your head, you have to have a position in Bitcoin right now. I would say start looking bullish because I do think that the bearish opportunities are not, there aren't that many more from here, I would say, in the short term. On the daily or the weekly, I would say the bears have had their big move here. If they get a little bit more, they're still going to have a harder time around here to push it down. But um, what Matt's really saying is that look for central banks to announce that they've switched their reserves to Bitcoin so that we can set our weekly higher low here and go to all-time highs.
So you did get the message. Okay.
Yeah, I saw the context.
Okay,
All
good.
right, looking at Ethereum here. Ethereum, always a different story, right? Because we did have this massive move from 116 to 288. I mentioned last week that I was looking to see if these 12 EMAs would hold. We did close under it on last week's candle. We're just starting a new week's candle right now. We're an hour into it. But again, if Bitcoin manages to kind of bottom here, it doesn't let 8,000 slip too badly. This, I would say, is a fair enough bounce off of that weekly EMA 12, and we can be looking for a lower high, knowing Ethereum probably decently into the 260 range, I would say. If and only if we can get a bounce. Beyond that, the big problem with Ethereum is that we did come straight off the lows here for this like 100+% move. So if we zoom into the daily, there is zero support under that 195.50 until 155.55. So if you're going to be taking a bullish Ethereum position, you have to have a stop loss there, and you have to just, be patient and wait for that bottom process to kind of work itself out. Just going over key levels here really quick. I do think that 251.93 level is pretty firm resistance. We were there literally 2 days ago, and we've dumped pretty massively from that. That 195.50 level has to hold. We were looking for a $200 flush today, and we got it by a little bit. Beyond that, it's 155.55. There's not much space for Ethereum if this level breaks. And if we get a bullish trend change here on the shorter term time frames, there's not much resistance to get back up here either. What do you think?
I'd also be looking at this 179 level just because that was a significant top on the way up. It took about 2 or 3, I guess 2 weeks before bulls were able to get continuation above that move. If you look at the daily time frame, right there, exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
That's really the only level within the area before 155.55. So there's a pretty big air pocket here if bulls don't hold the low of the pullback so far.
Yeah, and this has been a recurring theme, I guess, in today's analysis is that, when you're looking for support levels and they aren't clear by the candles, you look at former resistance, right? Right now, if I'm looking for that last daily support, there isn't anything until 155.55, but there is a former resistance, and that can possibly be a level. We don't always have to get back down to the last daily support to bounce. We look for things in between. I agree. I think that is a level to watch out for, but it was the same situation here with Bitcoin where we do have, again, some of these levels roughly around here, former resistances that can potentially turn into support. So yeah, good thing to keep an eye on for sure. What I do is, like, if I'm not going to be buying Bitcoin, I always like to put my technical analysis to work. So if I think that those areas might be good to buy, I'm going to put some alerts there so that when the price gets down there, I'll be able to kind of check my phone or TradingView on my computer and just see, are those areas going to work in the short term. Again, Ethereum on the weekly, I still think is pretty good. This is very high bear volume, but it's looking a lot better than Bitcoin. We got a lot closer to that recent high, or at least this weekly rally was fueled on immense bull volume, unlike the Bitcoin rally. Um, Beyond that, let's take a look at Link. This is one of the setups that played out really beautifully from last week's analysis. We were looking for either this 376 level to hold, I believe, and then it was 423 resistance or 424 resistance. That level broke bullish. We shot up pretty quickly here to an all-time high, but again, because Bitcoin is the gravity that pulls this sector in any which way, Bitcoin not really doing much bullish-wise, pulled Chainlink here back down to around 385. The levels I'm looking for on Link here are 497 kind of resistance, that's all-time high resistance, and 385, that's the recent dump lows. We have a lot of support in this region, so I would say the next one is 376, but one to watch out for this week, I think, because it has been a bounce leader on the little tiny Bitcoin, Ethereum, 5, 15-minute bounces. It would do 10% when they would do like 3 or 4. It's just another one of these really leveraged plays, but the fact that unlike any other thing in the cryptocurrency space, it's so close to all-time highs, I think makes it a worthwhile coin to keep on your watch list for sure. The
One
other
thing
one,
I don't like about this chart is the weekly chart. And we do have now four pretty big upper wicks in the 450 to $5 range.
yeah,
And it does look like a supply zone here. And you got to remember that these charts are telling us supply and demand and where are people buying and where are people selling. And it looks like there's a lot of selling pressure up here.
mm-hmm.
What I do like, however, is this is well positioned for a break of that supply zone. And let's call that resistance, I guess, $5 psychological,
Mm-hmm.
considering the all-time high is 498. This is well positioned if Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I know we're not doing it, but Litecoin, if the sector really gets going from whatever bottom it finds on this current pullback and bounces hard, Chainlink is very well positioned for new all-time highs.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if we get weak bounces and bear flags on the major coins and we pull back to lower lows, it's quite likely that this is going to remain a supply zone and we could start to see some further weakness in Link. So two different if-then scenarios depending on how the larger cap coins react to these historical beaten up RSI levels.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always the thing with crypto is when you have Bitcoin going sideways, which until the last few days we were kind of, just kind of grinding up in this range that's not super attractive. That's when these altcoins really take off. There's a lot of money that is in these exchanges like Coinbase or Binance, and if they can't see good returns on Bitcoin or Ethereum, they start looking at these other coins as leaders. And Chainlink has been the beneficiary of a lot of momentum in 2019 and 2020 because it was one of the few coins that did break out to new all-time highs. So yeah, like Matt's saying, I think this area definitely, when we can clear that with absolute confidence, and that to me would be to get a weekly close, definitely above the last highs here. I think the highest we've closed out on the weekly is about 445. But a close above that would signal, good stuff to come for bulls, I think.
And even from where we stand now, just going from, let's say, the low of that pullback up to 498 would be a 30% bounce. And on the daily time frame, that would not be likely. It would not be the most likely scenario to pull back down to 385 and then bounce that 30% to a new all-time high. Not saying it won't happen, but I would be looking on this daily time frame, if you flip to the daily for me, for one of those rubber band effects, that tightening equilibrium where we have our high, low, likely to see a lower high, higher low, and then to watch this pattern tighten and then see how it breaks.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting a lower high compared to 486 here. I thought, even if this breaks bullish, we would have a lower high here, but yeah, I do think that if we have bottomed a little bit here, definitely like what we saw in Ethereum, that was a really good example, going back 2 weeks ago, where you would have a daily equilibrium setup and then a bull or bearish break is a really good pattern to play. So yeah, really quick, I wanted to look at WazirX. I think I'm saying it right, or WazirX. Anyway, this is the India coin, I'll call it. Basically, I believe it was March 3rd or 4th that announcement came that the Supreme Court of India was overturning the banking ban on Bitcoin, which is big news because if anyone knows India, there's a lot of cash based, exchanges and people buying goods there in cash. And I do think that everyone, even in third world countries now has a cell phone. I think crypto is a ripe industry to disrupt a place like India. And I think that these exchanges, like WazirX, they're part of this blockchain roadshow as well going on across India. But these exchanges in India are definitely ones to watch out for. Projects in India, I think, are going to be a hot thing this year if we start seeing some more inroads and more positive developments. So this one was a fun one, obviously, this week because I believe it went from 5 cents up to about 22 cents. I managed to strike a little position here around like 10 cents. I took a little bit off at 14 cents or so. And I'm just riding it, it's a very small position, but I'm thinking, as long as we can kind of hold. Gee whiz, there really isn't much support on this thing because it's gone up so high. I think I'd probably bail it around 11 cents if we broke that, but as long as we're holding above that, which we are by about 70%, I'm gonna stick with it. And yeah, this is one too where it's hard to see on these shorter term time frames, but the dips have been getting bought up with huge volatility. Like you're looking at each one of these candles is about 7 to 10% basically. So one to watch out for. Matt, I know this one doesn't have a ton of history, but what would you say just observing this chart?
I really like the 12-hour time frame for clarity on this. And actually, it's holding
Oh
the
yeah.
12 period, 12-hour, 12 period EMA here.
Mm,
I still would be looking for a lower high on this. But as you mentioned, a little bit of volume can move this a long way. So
yeah.
would not be surprised to see it break the highs. But just from the 30% pullback from peak to trough here, I would expect a lower high, probably somewhere around the 20-cent mark. Another thing I'm looking on this is if you go into the 1 hour time frame, there's a very beautiful trend line. If you draw from wicks,
Yep.
from this candle here to this one and this one and this one,
I think that was like
uh,
the 4 hour has that kind of clear too.
I like the details on the 1 hour a little bit better, but
Yeah.
just taking the top of those wicks, these are perfect trend line. So I wouldn't even use the all-time high candle. I just use the next one over the.
I can't do this. What's going on? Yeah,
Yeah,
for
these
sure.
are perfect. And then I just connect this one a little bit better here. Yeah,
Yeah, roughly.
and these are perfect rejections from that, like to the cent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess to the micro
To the
cent.
micro cent or the tenth of a cent.
The,
Yeah, I
the
agree.
Satoshi?
Yeah, I think that's one to watch for sure. Um, yeah, I don't like to zoom in too close because it times out the videos. I like to keep it in the daily and the weekly. But yeah, this is one for sure. Like keep an eye on it because, and it's another one where every all-time high break that we've had has had pretty good continuation. Like breaking 11 or 12 cents here, we went up 20% to about 14.5 cents. We broke that another 10% to 16 cents. We break that all the way up to 22 cents. So this is one that I don't think you should FOMO into, but I do think all-time high breaks on this one are fair game to play. um, and as long as you're keeping a tight leash on it, and especially with these altcoins, not using like a ton of capital. I use like a tenth of the money that I use to play Bitcoin and Ethereum on things like this. But definitely want to keep an eye on. It's rare to find things in the crypto space that are so bullish right now. So
Did
yeah,
you delete the trend line from your 1 hour chart?
I did.
Um, Draw it back
Yeah.
and look at the 5 minute right now.
Oh God, what are you doing to me? Yeah, it's
It's
nice.
interesting.
Yeah, we
If
just tapped
volume
it.
pours in here, if volume pours in here and that trend line is broken above and it's held above with good volume, there might be a move. right after we end this video.
Yeah,
Volume doesn't really look like anything special currently, but there is certainly a little test of that downtrend going on.
for sure. The one thing really quick I just want to comment on too is that I wrote this in the chart, guys, but I was saying that I really want to see a blow off top on this one to call, you know, the whole move over. It would be kind of disappointing if this is where we fizzle out and then we lose the daily uptrend and everything, because the volume here is not even close to the first couple days of trading. The first couple days of trading were the IEO on Binance, I believe. I think so. And, you know, it just kind of bled out from there. It's only really been around since the beginning of the month. But with a token like this, with India opening up their banking, I want to see this break a high on volume. I don't think that the highest volume has been seen yet on this coin in its lifespan. So I think we got $550 million of volume here, and the price was approximately 10 cents. So the highest volume day on this thing is really only about like $40-50 million. So I want to see more than that to indicate, you know, the euphoria stage has kicked in. I think we're just seeing a nice little breakout here, but I don't think we're in full mania yet with this one. So we'll wrap it up. I wanted to leave a little question for you guys here. We're kind of doing a couple altcoins. If you have any requests for them, I'm going to make a little post on the Twitter page and on the YouTube community page. But if you have any altcoins you want to check out, we will go over them next week. I imagine there's going to be some people who want to see something like Ripple or Litecoin. But yeah, just comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week if the coronavirus hasn't killed one or both of us. And we'll do some more crypto analysis.
Knock on wood.